from heaven, Mac.
This is basically the age-old question within the Sonic the Hedgehog community in regards to the movies. What if the Sonic the Hedgehog movies looked like this? Oftentimes in the Sonic the Hedgehog community, when you speak on behalf of the animation in the series to its entirety, including the TV shows, movies, and everything else this series has to offer, people will point to the Sonic Unleashed opening. And to be totally honest, you would be kind of crazy not to. I mean, to this day, this is revered as one of the best animations that Sonic the Hedgehog has ever put out. And this includes some of the most recent stuff like the Sonic Frontiers prologue. Now, that's not to say any of the recent stuff is bad, but I mean, in comparison to something like this, I would argue it's basically unfair. I mean, this Sonic Unleashed opening looks like it was something that was completely made to be a movie in itself. After seeing this, people wanted more. People to this day want more. So that's why I kind of asked the question, what if we did get a fully animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie, like this, and not like this? But let me slow down for a second and talk a bit about today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. Have you ever wanted to watch a show on Netflix and found out that that show is unavailable in your region? Well, this is no longer an issue because with ExpressVPN, you can change your location and gain access to a vast array of content. But that's not all ExpressVPN can do. Whenever you're connected to an unencrypted network on your phone or computer, you're basically sending an open postcard that a bunch of nosy people can easily open and gain access to. However, a VPN prevents this from happening because it creates a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. In other words, it's like putting an envelope on that postcard we talked about earlier. So not only is ExpressVPN great for watching TV shows, but also for security. And with security comes privacy. ExpressVPN will protect you from all those who try to spy or collect your data for harmful means. There are quite a few VPN options out there, but none of them do it quite like ExpressVPN. With fast speeds, 24/7 customer support, and its very user-friendly interface, this has gotta be your go-to option. To get ExpressVPN, click the link below in the description and you'll get your first 3 months free. Before I go any further, I do want to make this clear. I really do enjoy the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, the ones we've gotten so far. They're actually very good, and I enjoy watching them a lot. I've seen them multiple times, and if you've watched my channel before, you know how much praise I give these movies. And even with that said, I feel like it'd be a little unfair of me to ignore the problems that these movies have, as good as they are. Like, one of the most glaring and annoying issues I have with the movies in general is the fact that I feel as though they ignore the source material to a certain extent. I mean, of course, they include characters like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and Eggman. You're telling me after 2 movies, it took us this long to see these characters? Whereas when you look at the Mario movie, it seems like they're just putting every piece of lore and character within the first movie itself. And I'm not saying that to compare that of the Mario movie and the Sonic movie, because quite frankly, I'm not going to sit here and say which one's better and which one isn't. But in terms of actually looking at the characters and source material itself, the Mario movie is doing a far better job at that. And that doesn't mean that the Sonic movie is bad by comparison, it's just that seeing that happen here with the Mario movie makes me really wish we had this with Sonic. When we first got the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, one of my biggest complaints was it didn't feel like a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. It felt like a movie that Sonic the Hedgehog was in. And I've said this so many times in so many different videos, in so many different ways. But when the second movie released for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie franchise, I had a different tune. I was saying that the movies actually felt more like Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's why I really loved it. And granted, I still do believe that to this day, but again, I don't think it's doing as much Sonic as it could do. At the time of recording this video, today, they had just released the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trailer, and it looks awesome. Mutant Mayhem looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to say this not only because of like the actors and the story. I mean, we don't know a whole lot about the story itself, but the way the movie looks and how true it is to these characters, it just feels so authentic. It feels like it's not trying to do anything else other than tell a Ninja Turtles story. And when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog movies, for example, it feels like they're a little scared to tell those Sonic the Hedgehog stories. They're scared to do this because they want to attract all kinds of people instead of just fans. But when we look at the movies that try to attract just the fans, you'll see how much impact it really has overall. Like the Mario movie, for example. I feel as though at its core, it's trying to attract the fans of the franchise first and foremost, but it's having somewhat of a ripple effect because it seems like everyone and their mom is interested in this movie just because of how beautiful and amazing and passionate the movie feels overall. And I think what really guides that passion is the fact that it wants to tell a Mario story. It wants to be a Mario movie, not a movie that has Mario in it. And they're not afraid to kind of do that. And I feel like that should be what the Sonic the Hedgehog movies do. And I feel like the best way of doing that could be in a fully animated movie. Hypothetically speaking, if we were to get a fully animated 3D Sonic the Hedgehog movie, it would be amazing because it would be able to explore the world of Sonic the Hedgehog and keep these characters at their core very closely similar to that of the actual game iterations. Imagine you get this fully animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and in this movie, there are no characters sidelined due to some sort of weird wedding plot or anything else along those lines. Now, granted, I'm someone who actually really enjoyed the secondary wedding plot in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie sequel, but that said, even though it was good, this is not what I came to see. I came to see our blue boy Sonic the Hedgehog fight against Dr. Eggman and also against Knuckles. And if we were to receive a fully animated movie, it would focus on only the Sonic the Hedgehog characters. One thing that I really love about the Mario movie, for example, is that it only focuses on those core characters that you really came to see in the first place. And with Sonic the Hedgehog, this would be no different. Sonic characters are extremely popular, and it takes us this long to get characters like Tails and Knuckles to debut in the second movie. These characters should have been in like the first movie. There was really no need to make up characters like Longclaw or anything else they had to offer. Instead, you could have utilized the characters that people really love about this franchise. One of the most appealing things about the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise to me is the characters. I feel like all of them are so uniquely designed and all of them in our own way are very interesting. Now, of course, some are more interesting than others, but even then, I love the main core group of these characters, being Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, you name them. They're all really fantastic, and I don't want to have to live in fear that some of these characters that are really great may not even get their chance to debut in a movie due to the fact that the human characters are taking more of a priority. And I mean, the tide is turning now with Sonic Movie 3 coming out, and Shadow's gonna be playing a role in that, but even still, I'm casting doubt on characters like Silver or Blaze or anyone else like Cream the Rabbit showing up in any of these movies, only because these characters would likely get sidelined by the human characters, or because that's just not the direction that these movies can really go in at this point in time. One of the biggest setbacks that the Sonic movies initially had was that it was kind of trying to deal with the fact that this was going to be an origin story for Sonic the Hedgehog, pretty much how he rose to fame and became the Sonic we know him as. But even then, this raises so many issues because if you're doing an origin story based on Sonic the Hedgehog, you're going to have to slowly integrate characters, and that's going to take time. Characters like Tails and Knuckles were properly introduced in the Sonic movie sequel for sure, but it was only because they laid the foundation for Sonic the Hedgehog in the first movie. Now, that said, if you had just done an animated film based on Sonic the Hedgehog and meeting these characters, you could have done a pretty quick origin story and maybe like a little recap or a flashback of some kind to really get the fans into it. But with that said, since they took this direction in trying to lay the foundation for how Sonic can utilize his power, it took a little while in order for us to meet some of the other characters we really wanted to see. Now, don't get it twisted, the characters isn't the only issue I have with the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, it's also the fact that the representation of the series could have been handled a lot better. I feel like a lot of people will agree with me in saying that Sonic's characterization in this movie, and also the soundtrack, and just the general characterization and representation of this series is kind of, weird in the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Basically what I'm trying to say nicely here is that it's not great. I feel like the movies don't really represent the games in the best way possible or really good at all. I feel like every time they use a song from the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and we already know that the music is one of the strongest parts or elements of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise in the first place, they really don't even use any of that in the movie. They kind of come up with their own songs that kind of feel, they're original, yes, but if I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember any of these songs. Like, I feel like if you had introduced actual Sonic the Hedgehog songs, or maybe even just like orchestrated those songs and put them in the movie, it would have clicked a lot better and it would have felt like more of a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And this goes for both the first one and the sequel. And the sequel did have a bit more Sonic the Hedgehog tunes in there, but It didn't feel as though they really wanted to fully dive into that. And the Sonic the Hedgehog music, as I said just a few moments ago, is very good. Like, it's universally loved by just about everyone. So, with that in mind, I feel like being scared to dive into one of Sonic the Hedgehog's best elements only proves that both of these movies were kind of playing it safe. And again, I do want to reiterate, I'm not saying that any of these movies are bad. Playing it safe is not necessarily always a bad thing. But I feel like when you have a juggernaut like Sonic the Hedgehog, why try to play it safe? And I feel like ultimately the answer to that question is video game movies have a history of not being good. So picking up Sonic the Hedgehog, playing it safe is the easiest and again, safest route. And you don't really know what the fan attention is going to be like. And especially after hearing the backlash after that original first Sonic the Hedgehog design, you're going to want to play it as safe as possible because you want to please the people that you're trying to look after. But I have a counter argument. Rather than trying to please these fans, why not find out what they want to see? You know, I feel like doing a bit more fan research into what really goes into creating a Sonic the Hedgehog movie would be key in making the perfect Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Learn more about this franchise, learn more about the games, learn more about the characters, and then utilize that to create the perfect Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And this ultimately leads me to create this video because if we had received a fully animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie in which it took place in Sonic the Hedgehog's world, we wouldn't really be having all of these problems and complications. The movies that we have already received are great, but neither of them really, and I mean truly, amount to being the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that we all really want to see. I mean, I can see it now. I can see it taking place in Sonic's world, and we're seeing all the characters we really love and care about with an epic plot going on there with fighting Dr. Eggman, and it's animated in the style of Spider-Verse, but having that Sonic charm that we really love to see. A lot of people think that this movie would not be as successful as, fans like to make it out to be, but I mean, I don't really see why. I mean, I'd love to read more of your arguments for that in the comment section down below, but I feel like a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, if it were fully animated, could still do very well. I mean, at the end of the day, Sonic the Hedgehog is a big character for number one, and number two, I feel as though it's important to realize that a good movie will sell tickets no matter what it is. And I think a fully animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie would be good. I mean, if you actually think about it, a lot of the best animated movies aren't even pre-existing franchises. They were just literally animated movies that just came out and people latched onto because it looked interesting and fun. And eventually they became established franchises that people went back to see over and over again. Sonic the Hedgehog has a bit of an advantage because he's a franchise that's been around for 30 years, and with that in mind, people already know who this character is. So even if there are people who don't know who Sonic the Hedgehog is, they might still be inclined to see this movie regardless because it looks fun. I for one believe that the potential for an animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie is through the roof, and I also do believe that it could still happen sometime in the future. Maybe not in the near future, but sometime eventually. The reason I feel confident saying this is because there are other franchises that have multiple different movies going on. I mean, one of the ones I was thinking about earlier when making this video was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that has like, I don't know how many different variations of movies with different iterations of these characters. And I think Sonic can easily do that once this movie trilogy, or however long it goes on for, is finished. And it isn't like Paramount couldn't do an animated Sonic film. They've done animated works before for many different franchises, so Sonic can still be with Paramount in making this fully animated movie. But that said, what do you guys think about my thoughts on a fully animated Sonic the Hedgehog movie? I want to hear all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all again so much for watching. This is Sonic signing out. Have a super blessed day, y'all.
Why are you playing that trash?